So I am so proud. I'm so happy. I'm so just excited about what our church did last week at the dessert auction. It was really something fun. It was a great atmosphere, and I wanted to get these guys up to show you guys the generosity that you guys gave so that our kids and our students could go to camp. And so, in as dramatic of a fashion as I could conjure up, we got these guys up here with their piece of paper. So, guys, go ahead and flip over and show you guys what you made. Almost $3,000. Yes, $3,000. 27. Oh, wait, hold up. That's not right. You guys switch. Hold on. No, it was almost $5,000. Yes. $4,726. I'm so excited and proud of the generosity, because what this number means is that lives are going to be changed, right? When kids go to camp, their lives are changed, and the trajectory of their life is changed forever. But actually, this number's not right either, because I had a friend in Indiana from my old church that called me up and said that he was going to do something special. So pick those up. He said that he was going to double it for us. He was going to match it. And so it's actually $9,500. He was texting me. He said, "How'd it go?" And I said, "I was so proud of our church." And he said, "How about we match it?" And man, I just got tears in my eyes, and it was really awesome. Generosity changes lives, right? And so now most of our kids, we're going to work it out, but I think they're going to go for very few dollars. I mean, it's just amazing. If you guys have a student that wants to go to camp, let's have that conversation, because it looks like it's gonna change lives. So, guys, appreciate you. You guys can have a seat. Yeah. Man, that is awesome. That is so cool. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it. We are finishing up our series called Cheat Codes today. And, there are real life cheat codes out there, aren't there? Parents, here's a cheat code. If you're a parent of a young child at home, here's a real cheat code. If you tell your kids, "I'm going to go take a nap, and when I wake up, we'll all do chores together," they are going to let you sleep as long as you want to sleep, okay? They're not going to wake you up. They're not going to be loud. They're going to be just fine. That's a real-life cheat code. A cheat code that I've used over the years is something simple. It's just small. It's not very big, but it's helped me, is making my bed every day. I don't know if you're like me, but I have to make my bed every day. And the reason why I like that is because it just sets a tone. It sets a tone for your day. It sets a tone you just woke up and you've already accomplished something. That's great. And so for me, that sets a tone for the rest of my life, Another one is finding something to be thankful for, even when you're in hard times. That is a cheat code. And I'll tell you why. I moved here from Indianapolis, but I didn't come alone. I, brought with me, my family. And I've got 3 young kids at home, and man, it is not easy for them. Nobody asked them, what they were gonna, vote yes or no, or they were told, hey, we're moving. Well, it's hard, right? Because you have your school that you grew up in. You have your house that you grew up in. You have your friends that live right across the street even. Everything is right there, and then all of a sudden we're going to go to this strange land of tornadoes and hail called Oklahoma that we found out last night. And that is very hard on kids, right? And Charlie gave me permission to tell this story, but she, it's hard for a middle school girl, right, to move all the way, halfway across the country, and it's just tough, right? So I told her, I said, "Listen, I want to do something for you. Go to your school today, and I want you to find every teacher that has blue shoes on. Blue shoes. And I will pay you $1 for every teacher that you find that has blue shoes on, or blue in their shoes. And so she came home and she said, I found 5, okay? So I gave her $5, and she's like, what is that for? And I said, well, here's a question. Have you ever noticed that before? Have you ever noticed those shoes before? She said, no. And I said, why? And she's like, I've never looked for blue shoes before. And I said, then why did you see them today? And she said, well, because I was looking for them. And I said, you find what you look for. And I challenged her every day to find something, to look for something that you could be thankful for and write it down. Because if you're looking for something good, you're going to find something good. And it's a real cheat code in our lives if we can be thankful and grateful for something, even when we're in hard times. Now, my words to her, right, I'm hoping that those made an impact. You know, you have kids, and you remember different pieces of advice that you would sit down with your kids, and you would hope that your words would influence and impact their lives. Well, a massive cheat code in our life is how we use those words, how we use our words. Words can change who we are, right? I hope my words help my kids. I hope Charlie never forgets that lesson for the rest of her life. But the scary and awesome fact is that parents have the ability to shape kids with their words, for better or for worse. I had a good friend out in California when I was out there. Her name was Thais. And Thais said that she would say to her kids every morning when they woke up, man, you are just so happy when you wake up. And she started that because one of her kids was not happy at all, super cranky, super, just woke up mad every day. Anybody like that here today? Yeah, just wake up mad, And she would go in and she would lie, and she would say, man, you are just so happy every time you wake up. Man, it's great. Well, he was a little kid, and so what do you think happened over the next few weeks? He began to wake up happy, and to this day, he wakes up a morning person. And I wonder, is it because the words that she shaped him with, even at a young age? Man, we got to be super careful and super intentional with the words that we use, because they can shape people, they can help people, they can hurt people. They can build life, or they could take away life. Words have power, and so words matter a lot. Have you ever said something that just lives on forever and you wish that people would just forget about it, right? I have 2 sisters, both are younger. Lori is Zoe's mom, and she is 1 year younger than me. And Tyra is 7 years older than me. And one day, we were all kind of getting dinner at different times. We were busy, I guess, whatever. And so Lori was at the dinner table alone, and instead of getting a normal dinner, she got a giant she cut herself a giant slice of cake. That was going to be her dinner. And Lori and I were in high school, and so obviously Mom and Dad, they kind of perused through the dining room, and they saw that, and they said, oh, Lori, is this your dinner? Is this what you're eating for dinner? This is not a healthy dinner. And man, that is a big piece of cake too, by the way. And she, got grief for that. And she was saying, I know. It's just something quick. I just saw it there. And she was going on about it, Well, I didn't know anything about it. And so whenever I rolled in, older brother, I see that. And my gosh, Lori, have you just totally given up in life now? Like, what is going on? That's humongous. Why are you eating that for, I just really lit into her. And she was just going crazy. And she was like, okay, I got it. Just leave me alone. Why can't I just have my cake and just, everybody leave me alone? Well, Tyra didn't know there was a ticking time bomb right there. And she walked in. And Tyra she's the nice one of the family. She is quiet. She doesn't make trouble. Lori and I do that, but not Tyra. She's super shy and just kind of quiet. She walked in and took one look at that, and she said, "That's huge." And Lori had enough. And Lori slammed her fork down, pointed at Tyra, and said, "You're huge." To this day, if anybody says that's huge, no matter what we're talking about, somebody will slap the table and say, "You're huge." 30 years later, you're huge. I'm sure she wishes that those words would just go away. Have you ever said something that you didn't mean to say, and it was a negative thing, right? And it really hurt you, or it hurt someone else? We all have. I grew up in a little town called Texhoma in the Panhandle. And it was a small 1A school. There was about 20 kids in each class. And for some reason, our 7th grade girls were in a feud with the 8th grade girls as a class, as the whole class. I don't know what it was about. Probably somebody was flirting with one of their boyfriends or something. I have no idea. But there was a feud going on. Well, they had a brilliant idea because we were in a class, and the next hour, the 8th grade girls, the 8th grade had a class in that same room, and they thought, we want to write a really nasty letter about someone and some of the girls in there and leave it in the desk because they'll find it the very next hour. But none of them wanted to write it. Why? Because they didn't want to get caught, and so they came to Brian Clark. I don't know. They probably looked around like, who's the dumbest idiot in this class? And they said, "Would you write this letter for us? Just really nasty letter." And I said, "Yeah, I'll do that." I wrote a really awful, awful letter about these girls. And the devil blushed. it was just really awful. And we left it in the desk there, and then we went to class in the next classroom across the hall, and it worked. And I know it worked. We all knew it worked whenever Miss Walls came streaming out of there and marching down to the principal's office with that paper in her hand. And all of a sudden, have you ever had that fear, that dread just come over you like, what did I do? She marched right down there to the principal's office, Mr. Ingham, and Mr. Ingham was breathing fire. And he said that he vowed to find out who did it, and he was going to take handwriting samples of everybody in the 7th grade class. That day in 7th grade is the day that I changed the font of my handwriting. To this day, I write differently than I wrote the day before in 7th grade. Words have power, and negative words can really mess you up. Did you guys know that they estimate that we speak between 6,000 and 16,000 words every single day? Now, I know some of you guys are skewing that number a little bit, and you're like way higher on 16,000, but that's a lot of words to get right. A lot of words to get right, and words have power, and that's a lot of responsibility. And we all know that the more you talk, the more opportunity you have to stick that foot in your mouth, say something hurtful, or get in trouble. My dad used to tell me all the time growing up, I had a propensity, right, of getting in trouble with my words, and he used to tell me, he said, "Brian, I want you from now on to think twice before you speak once." 16,000 words is a lot to get right every single day. If you held a handful of sand, and all those thousands of grains of sand are in there, it would be really hard to not be careless with a few of those grains of sand and let them slip between your fingers. It's really hard to make sure that all of those are cared for, and you're intentional with every single word. So what do we do to ensure that every word counts? How do we become people who are careful with our words, to use words to build lives instead of cause harm? So today, we're finishing our series out of the book of Proverbs. What we've been doing is starting in Proverbs and using that as a diving board to another part of Scripture, and we're going to do that again. So I want you to turn to Proverbs chapter 15, okay? Now, I told you last week that those pew Bibles, they're pretty small print. I didn't realize that. So we got some more coming that a little bit larger print. So if you guys don't have a Bible, I would encourage you to take one of those, and that would be yours. But turn to Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1. One of the hardest things in life to do is to hold your tongue when you want to lash out at somebody. You know what I'm talking about? Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up what? Anger. Yeah, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Have you ever had somebody say something snarky to you and you just fired right back? Have you ever had somebody talk about you and you in turn gave them a piece of your mind, right? Yeah, we all have. That's been us, all of us. But it is a dangerous way to live. I had asked Taylor Henderson, our worship pastor, if he knew a story in the Bible that exemplifies this proverb. 15:1, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And he took no time at all. Boom, yes, I know a great text it is perfect. And it's the story of Nabal, Abigail, and David, and it's in 1 Samuel chapter 25. 1 Samuel 25 is a story that we see that King David, he's not king yet, and his men had at one time protected this rich man's property and his possession named Nabal. And he had protected him at one point, but for his protection, he didn't ask for anything and he didn't take anything. He was hiding out from Saul, and he, at that point, was protecting them from the Philistine raiders. And he just did that out of the goodness of his heart. Well, now David is in need. He's low on supplies. And Nabal is a rich man, and so he knows that he owes him a favor. And so he sends messengers down to Nabal and says, hey, we need some supplies. What do you got for us? And Nabal would be willing, right? Because David had already helped him in the past. But that is not what happens. Not at all what happens. So 1 Samuel chapter 25, look in verse 10 and 11. It says this, Nabal answered David's servants, who's David? Who is the son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and water and the meat that I have slaughtered from my shears and give it to men coming from who knows where? Now remember, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, he insults David and says, who's David? What do I owe David? And so David's anger is stirred. Look in verse 13. David said to his men, each one of you, strap on your sword. So they did, and David strapped on his as well. And about 400 men went up with David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. He stirred the anger. He stirred David's anger. And that is not a man that you want to stir to anger. Why do we feel the need to return fire when fired upon? What is it about us that whenever somebody says something to us that we want to say something harsh in return? In David's case, he had been insulted in front of his men, and David had done a very kind thing for Nabal. Nabal was not willing to return a favor, and that's going to stir anyone's anger. He was right to be angry about that, of course. But one of the main reasons for us that is when somebody talks down to us, it makes us feel small. And therefore, we feel the need to validate ourselves by hitting back. Whenever somebody says something that hurts us, we have the desire to hit back because we need to validate ourselves. Now, I have noticed over the years that people who are really confident in who they are, they don't feel that need as much. Have you ever noticed that? That they don't feel the need to validate themselves by punching someone else back because they are already confident in who they are. They're very comfortable in their own skin. Now, sometimes it's just that we just don't like to be criticized. There's nothing wrong with that, right? We don't like to be criticized, so we use it as a defense mechanism. We'll hit back so as to try to protect ourselves. And it helps you regain a sense of control or power in a situation where you feel disrespected. I was a coach in middle school for football, and I had one of my players. I was coaching him up in one particular drill, and he palmed me up and walked away. And, oh, I hate that. Oh, my gosh. Parents, please tell your kids, if they're getting coached up, not to palm them up and just walk away. Oh, that's a quick trip to the bench, okay? I hate that. But on another occasion, and then this kid, he would do that, but on another occasion, one of the teachers, teachers, they love to do this to us coaches. They came and told us, oh, man, so-and-so, he really caused a scene in class today. He disrespected one of the teachers and made, it was pretty ugly, and gave us all the details. And so we're standing there and like, okay, sounds like a teacher problem. No, it's a coach problem. You have a player on your, okay, well, we got to deal with it. So then at the end of our practices, we would always do conditioning, and that was never fun, right? They'd be running, and I'd always be screaming out there, it ain't helping until it's hurting. It ain't helping until it's hurting, right? And so, we'd be doing this, and I'd tell them what a gift it was for me to run them and all, and everything, a bunch of lies, how that goes. But anyway, we left him after practice because we weren't finished with him, right? And so he, after 100 yards of rolling, have you ever rolled on your side for 100 yards and then turn around and do it back? That is not fun, right? He gets up totally exhausted. And I asked him, I said, hey, what's going on here? I mean, you could see, have you ever noticed one of these kids that you can tell that they're good kids? They're just, why are you why are you saying what you're saying? Well, where's that coming from? And so I asked him, and we stood out there on that football field for a while, just me and him. And I just kept asking him, where's it coming from? Where's, digging down? And you know what? It turned out that it was coming from someplace. His younger brother was bigger than him. And his younger brother picked on him in front of other people, made him feel small. And then also his dad was in prison. And so he didn't have a man in his life speaking words of life. That was void. And then the other guy that was in the family was making him look like a fool in front of other people. And so anytime somebody would speak to him, whether it was just a simple coaching him up or if there was a teacher getting on to him something, he would blow up. And he would use that as a defense mechanism because his words of hurt came from a deep place of his own hurt, right? And he felt the need to defend himself. In this story, Abigail, Nabal's wife, she has to save the day, right? The wife saves the day. I wonder how many of us foolish men have our wives that sometimes need to save us from time to time with the words that we've said. Well, that's what happens. Look in verse 18, 1 Samuel 25:18, and look at just the very first sentence there. It says, Abigail acted what? Quickly. Abigail acted quickly. Abigail was a woman of wisdom. And she knew that time was of the essence. She knew that her husband had said something and she could see that that's going to lead to no good. And so she acted quickly. Jesus said it was wise to settle matters quickly. If you stirred somebody's anger, do the right thing and deal with it. If you have said something, do the right thing and just deal with it. So Abigail sets out to meet David, and she takes with her all the food and all the supplies that David had needed in the first place. So she sets out. And so in verse 23, it says this: when Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground, right? Abigail, despite her wealth, despite her position, she was able to humble herself before David. Pride wrecks so many things in our life. It clouds our vision, and we don't see things for how they really are. You guys remember that mirror, at the carnival, the wavy mirror? That's what pride is. It's that mirror that makes you seem bigger than you actually are. Well, there's a piece of this story that really stood out to me as I was reading this. It seems that everybody knew that Nabal had messed up, that his words were foolish, but nobody tells Nabal. Nobody counsels him to say, hey, dude, I think you ought to reconsider here. I think you ought to apologize. Nobody tells him. In verse 14, it says this: one of the servants told Abigail, not Nabal. The servants aren't talking to him. They're talking to Abigail, Nabal's wife. And it says, David sent messengers from the wilderness to give our master his greetings, but he hurled insults at them. Right? So they're not talking to him. But then also look in verse 19. It says this: then she told her servants, go on ahead, I'll follow you. But she did not tell her husband Nabal. Why? Why does everybody understand the situation here, but nobody's speaking to him? It has everything to do with all the way back in verse 3. Look in verse 3. It says this: his name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was surly and mean in his dealings, and he was a Calebite. In other words, another way to say he was a fool, right? He did not give anybody permission to speak truthfully to him in his life. People who speak harshly to others around them will not have people who will be willing to speak the truth to them. If you speak harshly to the people that are closest around you, you will not get truth from the people that are closest around you. You will push them away, and they will be fearful to say what you need to hear. In verse 24, it says this: she fell at his feet and said this: pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. I wish they would have translated that different. Pardon your servant. We say that like, hey, pardon me, but it's not a big deal, in our language when we say pardon me or excuse me, you almost use it whenever you're interrupting, whatever, but that's not what she said. She literally meant pardon me. She says, in other words, in essence, she's saying, I'm going to take the blame here. Put the guilt on me, she says. She bows down, she gets low, and she puts her face to the ground, and she says, I'm to blame. I'm to blame. Now, was she to blame? Not really, right? She didn't say those words, but she is connected by marriage to this guy. They are one. And so she is going to take the blame. She owns it. It's not her fault, but she's going to take the blame. It's a real Jesus move there. And you can read for yourself on ahead, but Abigail, she goes on to compliment David by telling him that God has anointed him, and then she asked David to forgive Nabal instead of killing him. And then she counsels David, and she said, listen, if you forgive him, then when you become king, you won't have this on your conscience of needless bloodshed. And she speaks to David. She speaks to David with truth. Why? A gentle answer turns away wrath. She earned the right She earned permission to speak because she came in gentle. And she was able to speak to David in a way that saved many men's lives. People have said that our words are a matter of life and death, and sometimes they actually are. A gentle answer turns away wrath, and that's exactly what happened. In verse 32, look in verse 32 through 34. It says this: David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord." He starts off by praising God. "The God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself on my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak." Words matter. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The question is, what happens when we react with harsh words? We make a mess, don't we? We make a mess. You know, there's lots of different ways you can open up a watermelon. You know, most people would use a knife, but you can use a hammer as well, right? Well, the problem with this is this wasn't designed to be, opened with a hammer. But how many of us have ever heard words from a parent, a coach, or a friend that was harsh with us, and even all these years later, they still stay with us? Sometimes those words, they stay with us forever. And those blunt words, they make a mess. Words like, "You don't belong." Words like, "You don't matter." Words like, "You're not good enough." Words like, "You're not smart enough." Words like, "You don't belong." Words like, "You're not from around here." Words like, "You don't get it." These words, we can open up a watermelon this way, but it sure makes a mess, doesn't it? And now we've got a mess everywhere because we used a hammer with our words. We make messes with our words when we're not careful with them. Guys, I gotta be honest. I've done this to people. I hate it. I wish I could take them back. I wish I could go back. I mean, I'm standing here right now and I can think of people that I've hurt with my words. I've been hurt. I've been on the receiving end of this. Guys, don't be this guy. Don't be the one that's wielding hammers with your words. We've got to be gentle with each other. We've got to be wise with each other. And we've got to bring up claws when we're going to smash watermelons. We can really hurt people with our words. And sometimes the mess is the hurt that we cause, and sometimes the mess is the enemies we cause. If you respond harshly, you are guaranteed to stir people's anger. And then the vicious cycle starts, doesn't it? You say something, and they say something in return. And then you say something back, and then it gets going on and on and on. But there's a better way to open up a watermelon. It's with a knife. And it's precise, and it's intentional. How many times have we walked away from a situation wishing we had been more precise and intentional with our words? Honestly, this is so hard to take care of every single word that we say every day that it needs Jesus' help. Some of us have had a tough time controlling our mouths, and what we say has got us into a lot of trouble. So here's how to wrap this up. How can we learn to have wisdom with every single word? Number one is this: hit pause. Hit pause. Sometimes when you're hurt or angry, the best thing that you can do is just nothing at all. In the moment, you try not to do anything. Just pause. Pause for a few moments or minutes or hours. You might even need to just walk away. The pause is a great start to using your words wisely. We must learn to have self-control. When I was a teenager, my dad told me to go to drop off a load of sand at the church in a semi, and because they were building a sand court there. And he warned me as I was walking out the door, he said, don't drop it off next to the court. You'll get stuck. And I said, okay. So I get there and I get to the church, and of course, they were wanting me to drop it off next to the court. Why? So they didn't have to move that sand as far. And they were pressuring me. I said, my dad told me not to. And they're like, nah, you can do it. It's fine, it's fine. And I looked at the situation. I thought, I'm a good truck driver. I think I could do it. I got stuck. It was a Sunday. And back then, you guys remember Sunday evening church? Well, we were going to have it. And my dad was coming up to the church in a couple hours. And I thought, I've got to get this thing unstuck by the time he gets up here. And so we're digging this truck out, trying to get it unstuck. And then my dad showed up. He was not giving me high fives. He didn't give me a hug. He didn't give me encouragement that day. He was upset, and rightly so. And I remember he was getting real stern with me. And he was telling me, he said, Brian, here's the thing that I'm really upset with you about. You don't treat my stuff with care. You're just doing what you want to do. This stuff costs money. He's like, I just want you to take care of my stuff. And you did the exact thing I told you not to do. And look at what happened. Well, I'm hearing this, but I'm not wanting to hear it because I was the good guy here. I was trying to help the church out, right? I'm trying to help these guys out by putting it over there. And I'm trying to do a good thing. So in my mind, he's the bad guy. I'm the good guy. And so in that moment, here's what I did to my pop. I put my hand in his face. And I said, enough. And I waved him on and I walked away. And when I walked away like this because I just knew I was going to get a punch to the side of the head. My dad hit pause that day. But you already knew that. You know why you already knew that? Because I stand here alive today. Not in the Texoma Cemetery. Look, here's what the proverb is saying. It's wise to remain calm and with self-control. It's foolish to add harshness to an already tense situation. Responding harshly is lighting a fuse, and it makes a mess when it blows up. The second one is this: evaluate your words daily. Jesus said in Matthew 12:36, hear this, everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. Our words matter a lot. We would be wise to reflect on the words that were spoken to us and the words that we spoke to others that day. Especially if you're a parent, especially if you're a boss, or especially if you're a spouse. It's easy to allow a few of those 16,000 words that we speak every day to fall carelessly out of our mouths. As parents, spouses, or coworkers, we ought to evaluate what we're saying. Many times we speak to the people that we love harshly. Not because we don't love them, but because we become too lazy in filtering our words. So before you go to sleep, just make a habit of running back through your day and reevaluating those words. And it also gives you a prayer prompt to do better for the next day. And the last one is this: imitate Jesus. Jesus' disciple John wrote the fourth gospel, but it's not in the same style as Matthew, Mark, and Luke. John starts off his gospel and he calls Jesus, in the beginning was the Word. That's what he calls Jesus, the Word. Jesus was the salvation that God gave, and he was the message of that salvation from God. Learn Jesus' words. Speak Jesus' words. Look, controlling our reactions and responses is not always easy. Every single one of us knows that. But imagine what our relationships would look like if we worked towards responding in gentleness instead of harsh words. Conflicts and arguments, they're not going to disappear from our lives. But if we learn to have healthier responses, the better our relationships will be. Our words matter. My words, they matter because I can't take them back. Man, I wish I could. I wish I could go back to that moment, but I can't. Let's be Jesus people and use our words kindly and wisely. Let me pray. Jesus, I thank you so much that you spoke words of life to us, that